Hello.
Hey, Tren.
We're waiting for things that don't happen.
We are waiting for things that don't happen. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm
Yeah,
good.
all
We'll
right.
just talk. We'll just be off camera. We're talking about freaky things that are happening
Well,
happening more often than not lately.
Way more often than
Way,
not.
yeah.
Share your story.
Oh, I was I went into this shop that I work at, and the owner always walks her dog in the morning, and she wasn't particularly thinking about anything anyway. She
Right.
thought, you know, oh, I need a dress for this occasion that's coming up, and she went, where did that come from? It's like I was not thinking of it. And so she continued walking, went into work. I pulled up, walked in. She was on the phone to somebody else, put the phone down, and then picked it up. And here's this dress that she needed to buy.
And it's not that she didn't say it aloud.
Did not say. She
Did
told
not
me the
say it
story after.
Wow.
She did not say anything out loud about thinking about that. And I was like, how does that happen?
Oh my God.
How does that happen? That just, yeah, you just can't make this shit up, basically.
No, you can't make this shit up. What a way to start. What a way to start. And this week on the episode, we are going to be talking about the Fool's Journey.
Exactly.
So we hear about the Fool's Journey a fair bit. And basically what that is the fool walking through, if you will, the other major arcana.
Yeah.
And it's how he grows and all of that. You might hear about it as archetypes. It's used a lot in psychology.
Yeah.
There's a lot of what do you call it, psychologic behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a bit like that.
So,
We're going to talk about that.
So we're going to talk about that.
We are.
See how he wanders through the major arcana.
See, wander through that major arcana. Yeah, a bit like that hero's journey.
Another word
yeah,
for it.
another way to put it. Yeah.
So we will see what we need to know about this episode. Then
we need to do first.
We'll pick a card. Pick a card, any card.
Pick a card, any card. 78 to choose from. What's coming up?
What's coming up? What's coming up for the episode? Not quite.
Not quite.
That's the one though.
And we're using the Lightseers deck.
And we have the Hierophant.
Okie dokie.
Yeah. So I actually like the Hierophant in the Lightseers deck.
Do you?
I do like it. I do not like it in the Rider-Waite. I don't know. This one seems to be more joyous and more open to new opportunities and breaking down barriers and breaking rules if you have to.
Yeah, he's a bit more like that in that deck, isn't he? Which is more modern.
Yeah,
I feel,
more
modern,
like, yeah.
Because the Hierophant himself is typically about your customs, beliefs, your traditions, your rules, all that shit. Yeah, it can be a specialist too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
So no, I just really, I know if you're in Australia, you might know this man. This Hierophant always reminds me of Jonathan Thurston.
Okay.
the football player who always,
I can see how you got
always laughs. He's always laughing. He's got such a joyous energy around him. And so I always associate Jonathan Thurston with this card.
I can see that. He looks a little bit like him in a way too. Yeah.
Yes, but it's just that energy, that joyous, that what's next? What can I experience next? How can I break down barriers too? How he was a big, well, still is, breaking down barriers. He still is breaking down barriers.
So how does this apply to our lesson today, our podcast?
Yeah, I'm going to say, well, we're sort of bringing things into the fore, aren't we? And we're sort of breaking down barriers. Because sometimes we talk about the Fool's Journey and we don't know what that means. We just think, oh yeah, he's wandered along. He's just moved to one stage and the next, and not picking up wisdom and not learning from it. It's just like we don't realize the underlying wisdom that's through it.
That's true. I believe that we don't necessarily today. I think some of it's got lost. I'm not saying it's lost for everyone, but I just think for some tarot readers or some people that are picking up their deck maybe for the first time don't necessarily get how it all links.
Yeah.
One card links to the other and why it links to the other. And then little bit of a sneak preview for a couple of weeks' time, we will be talking about how we can spot these major arcana in the real world.
Yes.
Like where somebody's coming from. And of course, that'll then lead to a whole lot of questions that we can ask ourselves about that particular arcana, archetype, when it turns up, getting all the words confused. Yeah. You know, that's not new for me.
Yeah, because a lot of times people don't realize it's actually a Fool's Journey. And when we talk about tarot and the history of tarot, it's basically who the author was and who the artist was and how they got to this stage. They don't talk about the journey of the actual figure, do they?
Yeah, and because that's what it is, that you hear people say, oh, the tarot is about the fool, or the fool is about the tarot, and that's correct. But as Tren's just pointed out, this fella here, which is the fool, has a journey behind him as to how he got where he got.
Yeah.
Yes, very interesting. Very interesting.
Let's get into it then.
Let's get into it. So I thought I would start with this little poem. It's not my work. It's actually written by a fellow called Richard Cairns, and you'll find it in my book in the resource section. And it's all about the Fool's Journey. So this is his take on it, and it kind of resonates to me when you think about it, and we might hold them up as we go, I think. So the Fool's Journey, right? And I'll just read it.
Yeah.
There is nothing like a fool, they say. Someone clueless he can be, no experience of anything, and sets out to journey free, right? And that's what we say about the fool. You know, he's careless. Anyway, we'll get into that.
He's just wandering along.
He is just wandering along. Yeah, thanks. He reaches a magician, right? He's taught all he can achieve. He can manifest anything he wants. He just has to believe. So that's the energy that the magician hands the fool, right? And that's how the fool then becomes the magician, right? So you can see that, right? The high priestess then teaches him there is more than he can see. There is mystery deeply so profound. There is more in the world than he. Right? Very interesting. The fool then meets the Empress, who nourishes him like a mother, shows him all nature's loveliness and all the love for another. Right? So it's that nurturing, caring kind, right? The fool then meets the Emperor to learn of structure, law, and rule. He knows there is another stage to become less of a fool. The Hierophant then teaches him how to think, behave, believe. And now the fool is growing fast. Soon his childhood he will leave. He sees two people up ahead, lovers, an angel above. He can now make choices for himself, and if he chooses, fall in love.
Yeah, that's his choice, isn't it?
That's his choice, right? A chariot then pulls up alongside, and he boards with little fear. He learns control with firm of hand. Towards his future does he steer. In doing this, he learns a strength, a lion's heart, but in the mind, that fighting is not the only way. You can also defeat by being kind.
True.
He comes across a hermit standing quietly by a stone, and from him learns some lessons you must learn by being alone.
That's a big one.
That is a big one. Yeah. The wheel comes off his chariot and he crashes down with a frown. This is the wheel of fortune law. Life can be up, but can be down. The next, beg your pardon, he accepts the next lesson. Yeah, he accepts the next lesson. Justice surely comes along. There will always be a price to pay. Do you good or do you wrong?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Then walking up the road again, he sees the hangman upside down with a radiant light around his head like a shiny, peaceful crown.
Yeah.
That's that new perspective, right?
It is, completely.
Yeah. Aghast, he sees death up ahead. He shakes with mortal fear, but death says, worry not, dear fool. End of life. Wait a second. Each end of life, new life, is here. Wait a minute. I'll read that again. Wait a minute. Aghast, he sees death up ahead. He shakes with mortal fear, but death says, worry not, dear fool. Each end of life, new life is here.
Yep, exactly. It's not an ending.
Definitely not an ending. Okay, the fool, he then met temperance and is taught to look and see, do everything in balance, and he will live in harmony.
Yep.
Nice. But the devil suddenly appears. Do not listen to him, fool. Why not look at your wicked side? It is really so cool.
That's true, isn't it?
With this in mind, a tower explodes. It's time for reevaluation. With destruction of a way of thought, there is a chance of more creation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He sees the star shining brightly, and it really... Oh, wait a second. He sees the star shining brightly, and it's really only the one, I think that's supposed to be. He is filled with heavenly hope and faith, seeing light there once again. So to me, that's about you come out of that dark cracking time into that space of hope and light.
Trust.
Hope and trust, yeah, exactly. Okay. But in the moon, he is reminded, not all is as it seems. Subconscious shadows, fears remain, like a fitful night of dreams. But come in the morning sun with radiant energy glows, shows all abundance, life and joy. Yes, he is blessed. He knows.
He knows.
Yeah. This is the day of judgment. He is reborn and travelled well. He has grown now in so many ways, with so many tales to tell.
Exactly.
He sees the world then up ahead. He is a fool no longer then. He has completed now his journey, and he sets back out again.
Back again. Starts again.
He starts again. So he learns a new level, right? And there's this saying, right? New level, same devil. So you go through all of these things again, right? And integrate them. So they're kind of like all the parts of yourself, you might say. So
exactly.
Just pop that little book away. And now we're just going to take a look at
we're going to go individual.
A little bit deeper, just going to go a little bit further into it. So we'll see how far we get.
Yeah, exactly. Could be a part 2.
It may not, who knows. So the fool's journey. So the fool sets out on an adventure, and like most of us, life is what happens to us, and it's how we respond and react to all of that as to whether we're going to grow or we're going to become stagnant. That's really what the journey's about, right?
You can either move forward or you can stand still.
That's exactly right. You can move forward or stand still. So the fool, he represents innocence, joy, adventure, naivety, foolishness sometimes. He had
take that leap of faith.
Take that leap of faith, absolutely. He has an openness to life. He encourages to be curious. I tend to see the fool sometimes as the underdog. So sometimes when you see the fool card in a reading, if you get a sense of the underdog, then maybe the person you're reading for is an underdog, maybe, you know, and you can talk to them about all of these things they can learn along the way, right?
Just at the start.
Yeah, because the 0 is telling us that all things are possible, right? Because nothing's been created yet. He hasn't set out and done anything yet. He's just starting his journey with all the curiosity and all the spontaneity.
He's got full potential. It's just what
He
you reach
does
that
have,
or not.
I love that. He does have full potential, so he expects nothing at all, and he plans nothing. So that's where he is. So that's how he starts. That's his mindset. That's where he sets off, and that's how most of us are when we start something new. We're like, oh, I don't know how it's going to go. I'm just going to go and do it.
Exactly.
Be curious about it, or maybe we found life that way. Who knows? Okay, so he then runs into the magician, right?
The magician.
As the poem was saying. So the magician speaks to action and using the tools that we have to create. Now, this magician uses his intellect, and using his intellect, he can discover his spiritual prowess, you might say, or spiritual secrets. Very interesting. And he represents the masculine because he's doing. So he's a masculine energy,
so he's
right?
a doing card.
He's a doing card, and therefore conscious. Very conscious card. He's creative force, giving life purpose. And here's something I didn't know, but he represents the West.
That's interesting. We were trying to work out how he
represents the West. That's pretty cool. I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. And when I think about that, East and West medicines, West is very masculine. It's, whereas East is not. So that could be one way.
That could be one way of doing it.
But he is the starting point of growth. And this is where the fool starts to lose his innocence, because he learns.
He
Oh, I
learns.
can manifest things.
Exactly.
Oh, I can create things. Oh, I can make this happen, right?
Yeah.
So this is where he starts to lose his innocence as he travels along his
Yeah.
journey. So then he meets the high priestess, and of course she's the feminine, right? And guess what she represents?
She'd be the east.
She'd be the east, right? So she represents the east. So therefore it's passive. It's more intuitive. It's more about the unconscious stuff. So the inner knowledge and our inner truths. And she sits between the pillars of light and dark.
Light and dark.
Right? Very, very interesting. Now, she also can represent the separation from the world and time. Now, the world and the time, so the world being the place and the time being the energy that it takes kind of thing, is very masculine because you've got to do, right?
Yeah.
On, right?
On all the time, mate.
On all the time. With this one, you lose that because you're working purely with energy and intuition. So time's like non-existent, which is, well, it is, but it isn't, if you know what I mean.
Exactly, yeah.
Start of that hole. Let's go down that rabbit hole. It's the start of that rabbit hole, right? So the fool starts to increase his self-knowledge.
Yeah.
And he starts to trust in himself and his intuition, and he learns to go within.
Yeah.
So that's the message.
That's the important bit, isn't it? Going within.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You need to go within and be in alignment before you fucking do anything.
Exactly.
I've got a friend who does that all the time. She goes within first and gets herself in alignment, and she's fucking amazing.
Exactly.
So the things that come to her is just incredible because she does that, right? And she works hard at that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not easy.
No, not necessarily, because we want to listen to that sometimes.
Exactly.
No, ego gets in the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's like, well, we don't want to hear that, do we? We don't want to do that. That's not in my plan.
That's right. And that's when you start questioning yourself, all these stories, which is where you're going to learn when you start working with the archetypes, which archetype is trying to jump in here, right? And is that the place that I choose to come from? So that's the purpose for learning about the fool's journey and understanding it. So then he meets the Empress.
Here she is.
There she is. She speaks of motherhood and love and gentleness and nature and sensation and abundance, fertility and growth, amongst other things. Yeah. But she represents the mental side of us. No, got that wrong.
No, she doesn't.
Got that wrong. I'm like, no, that doesn't even feel right. The high priestess represents that mental side because she's in that energy. She's in a completely different, that air energy, if you will, right? So she's in that energy, that mental energy. The Empress represents the emotional energy and the emotional self.
She's very much in touch with her emotions.
She's a passionate person or a passionate energy and has a passionate approach to life. She uses the power of nature. It's the other thing, right? So until we learn to experience our outer world, right, completely, we can't hope to transcend it. So you've got to go through it in order to transcend it, right? So that's what that is about. So here the fool learns what it is to be cared for and how to nurture.
And to allow himself to be cared for.
To allow, because some people won't allow that, right? Some people are like, no. Yeah. And often that's because it was at this point in the journey that the trouble started.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Interesting, which is around all the mother energy, right? I mean, who's got mother wounds, right? Who's got father wounds? That's what this is all about. So this is where that can start. So it's great if you can recognize through your journey what archetype is coming through in its wounded form or in its higher form, right?
Exactly.
Interesting. So then we go on to the Emperor, right? And the Emperor is the authority, the responsibility, the structure, the discipline, and all that stuff, right?
So the dad energy.
He is the father, the dad energy, right? So here the fool learns rules, but he also learns the necessity for them at this stage in life. Right? So he's learning the necessity for the rules and the discipline and why you got to be disciplined.
Exactly. And because you can't just keep, doing your thing and expecting no consequences either.
Yeah, right, which comes in later. And the authority. And that's not to say that you can't go and do your thing, you can, but remember, it's what you do with it.
Exactly.
That matters. And, in life, I don't know, we just learn all these things. So.
Yeah, sort of take it on board as we go along.
We do. So then we have the Hierophant. Now, Trent said earlier, she don't like
I don't
look
like
at this
this one.
card compared to the one we had. And as you can, if you're watching this, you'll see they're very, very different
I will
cards.
show you that. See how different they are in the different images, the different energy. This one to me is very structured and conformed, you know, whereas this one has got a lightness, a joyfulness, a brightness to it.
Yeah, that the light seers reminds me of ascending, right? And climbing the stairs yourself, doing the work to climb your stairs to see what fits and what doesn't fit for yourself. You're making choice, whereas the Hierophant in the Rider-Waite is a little more structured, and it's like this is where the Fool travels along in his journey, and when he runs into the Hierophant, he learns about his beliefs, and he learns about the beliefs of society and the structures and the customs of society. So now he needs to make a decision. Is he going to take them on as his own, or is he not? And if it's your first time around learning something, chances are you're going to take that on.
Exactly.
So what we're talking about here from a Fool's journey perspective is typically this first time round stuff would be when you're 7 years and under, and this is where you get all those limiting beliefs from, right? That might have stemmed from a mother wound or a father wound, or, you know, the lack of trust in self, or so you can kind of see that story starting to come together, right? That's what the Hierophant does. So because he learns how well he can conform.
Exactly.
And maybe he doesn't want to.
Can't.
And maybe he doesn't want it. Maybe he's a bit of a rebel. And that's okay. Although society would say no, right? And what a time to be alive. I don't know. Are you finding that like things are bending a bit more, and society's like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore?
Exactly. Things are breaking. It's like it's old traditions, old ways are falling away because they just don't work anymore. And people are not tolerating certain things.
No, they're
anymore.
not tolerating bullshit anymore either. So it's such an interesting, curious time to be alive. So this is what we are all busting through. If you've got that school of thought, this is where we're at, right? With that, and maybe we're a little further. Some of us are, some of us aren't.
Exactly. But and I even think this card also is religion.
Yes, I left that out. Yes, it is. It can be,
and that can be the religious beliefs and the religious ideals are rigid and too structured and not uneducated, but it's almost like not experienced. People are making rules with not having the experience behind them.
And that's a really interesting point, because my take on that is that it definitely had its place in it. And I'm not saying that there's no place for it, because there absolutely is. However, it's almost like they're taking, if we look at the journey, right, and you go through the journey, you know, as a child, you go through it again as an adolescent, you go through it again as a young adult, you go through it again when you enter the workforce, or you become an entrepreneur, or whatever it is. You're going through this Fool's journey all of the time. And I feel sometimes that as a society, we get stuck in what was the childhood journey or the early adult journey, and we're trying to apply those same fucking rules,
and they just don't work.
It just doesn't work anymore.
Society's moved on, and sometimes we haven't.
Or vice versa. So society holds you in this place where they're saying, no, you have to do things this way. I was having a conversation with beautiful soul the other day, and we were talking about like money and the structure around money, and how you either think the way society tells you to think, right? Like, you know, okay, you're going to have to go and get a 9-to-5 job, and it'll have to pay X amount to pay all your bills and all this. And I'm listening to this conversation, and then I'm like, but what if you were open to receiving these energies in a different way? Like, what if they came through gift? What if it came through donation? What if it came through you, I don't know, renting out your house? What if it came through you,
that barter system,
absolutely, or, you know, having a garage sale or something. Like, what if you were open to that? So it's an interesting conversation to have. Like, so if you find yourself rigid getting stuck in that,
think outside the box.
Try to think outside the box. Like, where is society? Is this society's? Or is this actually me? I think the Hierophant raises awesome questions.
It's a big question mark. And I think that's partly why I have trouble with him, especially. It's a big question mark. It's like, well, which way do you go?
Yeah, and I mean, on his crown, you'll see that that's 3-layered, right?
Yeah.
And that speaks to like our layers, our mind, body, spirit, our body, our soul, our heart, our energy, the physicality, all of that. That's what that is. So that to me is like the symbol that says, well, this is layered.
Oh,
These structures are layered.
Yeah.
So you're going to reach a certain point and then have to bust
Break
through and go again. So
Yeah.
that's how I see the Hierophant. So right.
Interesting.
What happens then? We had a lot to say about
Yeah.
him. The spirit card, we're like, we
expecting
don't know about that. Yeah. Okay, so the Lovers.
The Lovers.
The Lovers speaks to commitment and relationship and love itself and to choice and union. And love is a driving force, is it not?
It is very much.
It is very, I love something or someone, I'm like, whoosh, doing all in, not mucking around. I don't do this dip the toe in.
No, boots,
you know, boots and all, and I'll leave boots and all too. So a bit like that. Although I must admit that does take me a bit to
get to that
stage. But once I'm at that stage, I'm at that stage. So here the Fool experiences the powerful urge of the sexual union, right? And that he can find in another, and also in another he looks at what he lacks or what he brings to that. So he's starting to see how we can reflect each other, or how we can complement or even be the opposite to each other, right? And of course that then brings about compromise. So he's learning about compromise here, and of course he learns about choice
as well,
and love. Choice and love. All right. We reckon we can do
maybe.
Well, we'll go to the Wheel of Fortune. We thought we'd have to have a second, and we will. So, okay, the Chariot. The Chariot is about control. He's the driving force, the direction you're taking. He's the willpower, right? So he speaks to ego. Very much this guy speaks to ego, but he also speaks to victory.
Very much.
Yeah, so he's like a yes card. Everyone looking at us. Yes. Yeah. So the Fool develops here, though, an inner control. It's about inner control to triumph over his environment with a focus on his future. Now, the focus is on his future because that's the driving force in the direction he's taking, right? So he needs to gain control over that, so that he can then head in that direction. So that's what the Chariot is about.
I think you might have a choice about which direction he goes to.
Absolutely.
He's got choices there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely has choices. And he's connected to like all of the energies of the universe, and that's represented in the stars. Right, in the zodiacs, all of those up in the canopy,
and
right?
I think somewhere else, I thought somewhere else on him. Oh no, on the crown he's wearing is a star. Thought there was somewhere else he had that.
Yeah, that star actually I think matches the star on the star card. I'll have to go and check it out now I've said that, but I think that matches the star on the star card, which is Sirius, which is our brightest star in our solar system. So he's definitely got, that's right in his third eye, right? So he can, if he chooses
to really go
within and do that, and yet because it is about his inner control. So how's he going to go about that?
He's got a choice, hasn't he?
He has a
back to that choice.
Comes back to the choice, right? What's driving him? What's driving him? All right. So strength. Strength is about compassion, self-compassion, forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and it is about an inner strength, right? It's an inner thing still. So he's kind of doing this inward thing going here, right? Yeah. So here he learns about courage, and he learns about courage and resolve, right? So he learns to handle setbacks, disappointments, that kind of thing, without acting out like that 2-year-old that didn't get their way, or without. It is a 2-year-old thing to sit and sulk, and it's a 2-year-old thing to get quite like, but he learns, not saying there's anything wrong with that, but just, next level. So
resilience, isn't it?
Resilience, and resilience to deal with life and all of the setbacks. So if you were handed a difficult task to do, not only physically, and then the outcome maybe not being what you want, that's a setback, right? But also an emotional task, or to have that emotional strength about you if, you've got to deal with the loss of a job or something happens to you at work and you're put in this particular situation for whatever fucked up reason.
You've got to deal with that stress.
You've got to deal with the stress of it. Then this is about how we build the resilience.
Exactly.
And it's an inward job.
Yes.
Inward job, but it's learning to handle it, yeah. So we have the hermit, right? So the hermit, the solitude, the aloneness, it can be lonely as well, but he's also very wise, this dude, right? Because he's now starting to apply all of the things that he's learned, and he's stopping and he's taking a moment to do that. So it's the deep inner truth. So the fool learns to look inward here at this point in his life, at this point in the journey. He learns to look inward and to understand his own motivations. What's driving him to actually do that, right? And his feelings. Now, when we're going through that, sometimes we seek solitude. You know,
it's the only way, isn't it?
Yeah, I need things to be quiet for a minute. Like, shut the fuck up while I process this.
Exactly. Like, don't turn the radio up on parking.
I've got to turn my radio down. Like, shut up, I turn it down. Like, why? What is that? Yeah. So anyway, who else does that? That'd be fun to know. But yeah, so that's what this here is about. It's where we're looking at our feelings and our motivations, what's our driving force behind that. So if you discover yourself looking and questioning that, understand you're invoking the hermit.
Yeah, exactly. Going within to find the answers. Instead of looking externally for the answers, you're going within. You've finally got that wisdom and realization to go within.
Yeah, it is a realization. That's a really good point. Yeah, it's definitely a realization. So, okay, here comes the Wheel of Fortune. I call it the I don't know card. It's change, it's Groundhog Day, it's cycles, but she's also fate and karma, right? So here, the fool learns to recognize his destiny and to see the sequence of events that got him to where he is. So he starts to reflect and go, oh, I can see now why I didn't get that job and I got that one instead, and I missed that bus and I caught that train or whatever, or the shop was out of that or whatever. He starts to see those things that have led to his turning points, right? Because you have a plan. Let's face it, we all have a plan, right? So we go, well, most of us have a plan. We go, I'm going to get up at this time. I'm going to, I don't know, go for a walk, go to the gym, meditate, open my chakras, go to the shop, whatever. And you might do some of that, but have slept in a bit.
Exactly. Something mucked up, isn't it?
Something mucked up. And then that's caused something else. And then you go to the shop and they sold out of that thing and you're like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
And this is where we go, like the next day or so, might even be the next minute or so, where you realise, oh my God, I'm so glad I wasn't, I would have parked there, and now there's been this accident where I would have parked. So you start to go, oh, okay.
There was a reason behind it.
There's a reason behind it. So, and the fate and the karma can roll in with that as well, right?
I think talking about that, it's also bringing that gratitude for the things that have not happened the way you thought they were going to happen.
Yeah, that's a real thing. Absolutely need to bring that in and say thank you for not happening.
Thank you for not pushing me into that situation where I may have been hurt or lose my job or do this and that. I've chosen something else and I've got a better outcome.
In a toxic environment or something.
So sort of practice a bit of gratitude around this card sometimes too.
I think that's a good thing to be reminded of. So he learns there to understand that there are patterns and cycles in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. So that's what that is. So we are going to leave that at that halfway point and come back to this one next week.
Right. So I hope you've enjoyed going halfway through the Fool's journey.
Halfway through, and we will jump straight into it next week.
No mucking around next week.
No mucking around. We'll get straight to it. So we hope that you've gained some insight into how each card connects here.
Yeah, exactly.
And the behaviours.
And sort of really look into the cards and look at, well, why has the High Priestess turned up? Why has the Emperor turned up? You sort of like, yes, we can read the cards, but it's also a lot of whys behind it sometimes too. Yeah,
getting into that, like patterns and themes. It's a whole other fucking story. But anyway, we hope you have enjoyed today.
And thank you for listening, supporting, watching, all the things.
Liking, subscribing, sharing. So
we do appreciate it.
We do. So from our heart to yours, big, big, big love.
See you next week.
Bye.